Hello and welcome back to CarMiZa. This is Trunk Details Part 13, and in this video I will show how I got to this point. Stay tuned. Before, after. If you've been following along, watching my videos, on the last video I kind of got my butt kicked by these side brackets. I have since replaced those. They came out very good, very solid. And on this particular chassis, this is going to be the finished one going in the car. I got these screws out because I'm about to see if I can get away with flush trim routering the entire assembly. So that's the other side brackets. Everything came out very good there, very solid. Notice, I mean, it's in terms of a gap, there's nothing. I may have to open that up just a slight bit when these get, prior to these getting gold plated. If you see here, they fit together like perfectly. This is going to be the side that'll be facing the viewer when you open the trunk. Put that too, look at that, it's exact. So now, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to use, if you notice, so what I've done, again, as I've gotten rid of the bottom of the, this is the P1, the bottom of the P1, that's right here, and the top of the X1, right? So if you look over here, you can see those two pieces. So it's this piece and this piece. I got rid of, and then you can see where there's kind of a big seam there, right? So I got rid of both of those and then built my side brackets instead. So what I'm gonna do, I'll pull this apart, I'll attach this to the bottom of the P1, and I'll use this as my test piece to try routering. I've got to be really careful, especially back here with the depth of the router, because if the bearing was to fall into any of these holes, these should be fine, but I've got to be really careful like on these two, because if the bearing follows that and goes in there, it's going to just take a big chunk out of the chassis. So I got to be really careful. So let's see how it goes. I'm not sure how well this comes up on video, but that works pretty well. I think I'm going to be good there. So I'll reassemble the whole thing and then run it around with the router, and that'll get it a nice clean edge. Let's give it a shot. All right, that worked out. In the words of Clark Griswold, I still have some trimming to do. But you can see like right here, it's like perfect. I do have to clean up the corners a little bit, and it didn't get all of this. I'd rather have it where I have to trim away a little bit than where it got more than I wanted it to. So pretty cool. Now I'll just go through, clean it up. I'll pull the top and bottom off. Let me go ahead and do that, and then it should look pretty sharp. All right, to clean up the edges as I need to a little bit, once again, my friend, the sanding stick, and I'll just do this with a little bit more carefully, but sand it back and forth. That way it is nice and flat. All right, a little out of order edit here. When I last showed the P1 and X1, I was real happy with it. Then I had found an issue, which is now fixed in this part, with this cover. The sanding stick, I got too aggressive and I ended up sanding this at an angle. So you'll see in just a moment where I go through and redo the cover for the P1. All right, it's the next morning and I'm not gonna go an inch further without redoing the top of the P1 because that's the way I roll. So I went and grabbed the other units that I've got 3 of these, and I'm gonna just pick the worst one. None of them are in that bad a shape, which is kind of unfortunate. They're actually quite clean. So I'll pick the worst one, and that'll be the sacrificial cover, and I will use that. It's likely gonna be this guy. Somebody looks like got a screwdriver. It wasn't me. And arced out the chassis to the 12 volt. So yeah, that one looks to be the worst one. So I'll use that one, and I won't show the detail on that, but I'll go ahead and get that one in, routed, drill for the cover, open up the holes for the larger bolts, all of that fun stuff. So let me go ahead and do that now. Okay, I did a new cover. Just want to show this out in the sun where I've got some really good light. I am happy with that. So now I still have to drill the holes in the top of the P1 to redo the plate, and then I'll be good. Okay, redid the P1, and now I'm very happy. I think it's still, there's aspects about it that are maybe not totally perfect, but again, based on just doing this stuff in my garage with hand tools, things like that, my Fisher Price / Harbor Freight stuff, I'm not going to blame the tools, but I think that's as good as it's going to get. If I try to screw around with that anymore, I'll only make it worse. So, all right, so now P1 and X1 are done. Let's get the changers mounted. All right, first step with the changers is to determine where I can mount the screws and drill into the case. So it's kind of tough to see in here, but I have marked this blue mark. Basically represents as far this way as I would want to go, and I did the same thing here. There is a gear in there, but I've got plenty of room to work with because the bolt head, once again, is less than 1/8 of an inch. I'm using these bolts. These are the same 1/4-20s that I use for the P1 and X1, and I'll be doing 6 per changer. Once again, quite overkill, but you can see in there when this is, let's move this back in, that basically represents bottomed out. That's what those limits are, but normally it's kind of floating. So I've got plenty of room, and I'll go ahead and get my holes laid out on this piece. Just to be completely safe, here's a piece of 1/4-inch MDF. It's really tough to see inside of there, but with that bottomed out, it's barely just rubbing on the top of the gear. So 1/4-inch versus 0.1 inches, I'll be safe. The next step for the changers, I have them double side taped to the 1 Zapco bottoms. They're really solid on there, so they shouldn't move around. And I put a straight edge against the 2 changers, measured the gap to the P1X1. Everything is good there. The straight edge along the changers is straight. It's straight compared to the fins on the amplifier. I made sure that the gap, was exactly the same. It's kind of tough to see there, but it's 1 inch between each changer and the P1 and X1. So placement of these items is final now at this point. So now I'll go to the next step. Now I have both changers pulled apart where I just have the top cover and the 1 Zapco bottom. So, excuse me, I've got, it's tough to see there. See my mark that I put on the 1 Zapco bottom? That again represents as far to the left and right as I want to go. I put the same marks, just little pen Sharpie marks, on the 1 Zapco. Now, when I pull this out, I can do the same clearance check because I'm going to have the nuts are going to be mounted inside of the amp. And if you notice, if I was to draw a line here and look here, tons of real estate. The middle looks fine. I've got the caps which won't be in the way. And then here, I'll probably go in between this line and these caps. And this here is 3/4 of an inch deep. So no problem. I thought for a second there I might have to get out the plexiglass template, but no problem at all. So now I'll get the holes laid out on the changers. In case you're wondering, I am using a square and getting this laid out nicely. I have both changers laid out. I did a center punch for each hole. Again, there'll be 6 bolts holding each one in. Now time to bring these to the drill press and get them. All right, once again, probably an overkill step here, but I'm using an 1/8 inch drill bit to ensure that I hit my mark that I have center punched, and then I'll upgrade it without moving the drill press to, that's I think a 17/64, so slightly bigger than a 1/4. Gives me a little tiny bit of play should I need it. So let's go ahead, get right along, go ahead and get this one drilled. And also, obviously, I'm still double side taped to the Zapco bottom. Sorry for damaging your instructions there, Sony. A little tricky to do with one hand here. Now shut it off, change out the bit, and I'll be good. And then I'll repeat that 12 times between the two changers. Okay, all holes are drilled, came out very good. Now I'll pull these two pieces apart, the cover from the changer, and deburr, and then use the hardware to get it all mounted together, and then I'll test fit those into the Zapco and make sure they look good. Stand by. Changer chassis are bolted together, bolted to the bottom. I haven't mounted this yet. I just wanted to make sure everything is good with play, nothing's rocking back and forth, no issues there. A little bit overkill. Again, that's kind of my MO. And then got the other one. This is the driver's side. Looks good. Everything is solid there. Plenty of room. And again, if you look at, it's up to tell here, where those bolts come into play, they just missed that auxiliary board. No issues there. And then I'm away from those large capacitors, so no problem there. So at this point, gotta reassemble the changers. Again, we're just gonna have the shells because I want to see what this whole thing looks like in the car. So let's get those put back together next. All right, this is the final check of these items before I put the one Zapco back in the car and then put the bottoms on for the Sony parts. So it'll be the first time, definitely a milestone, that I will be able to see what this stuff looks like in the car. Taking a look at this, just one last check. Everything is bolted in now. You can see that definitely turned out exactly kind of what I had envisioned. It's going to allow for real quick, easy servicing and hopefully no issues. So I'm going to go ahead and get the one Zapco in, and we'll get the Sony parts in as well. I know there's still a lot to go, but for me, this is definitely a milestone to finally be able to see what went from my vision of trying to replicate what Earl had initially in the car like that. And by the way, I just talked to him on the phone. I had never seen the car in person with this setup. I only saw the original setup that Henry did before the gold and before the two C1s. So I did manage to get a bunch of pictures from Earl. At some point I'll upload those too. There's got to be 1,000 of them of the build when he did it this way. But very happy with everything. I did manage to go through. There was some aspects of the brackets on the P1 and X1 I didn't like, and I said I wouldn't mess around with it. I did, of course. But I am very happy with that. I think that looks really cool with the deletion of the bottom of the P1 and the top of the X1, and it looks very clean like it was meant to be. This lighting, this is just a little shop light I got sitting in here, but that's kind of the shadow type of lighting that Earl had. There will be, once again, the dichroic lights in along the back side of the trunk wall, so it's going to cast the light the same way and give you the shadows. Keep in mind, again, everything is very rough right now. The one Zapco still needs to be repainted. That is just media blasted at this point. I know it looks like it's painted. Earl and I, again, just got off the phone. He thought I had painted it already. That is just media blasted, and it's an anchor profile, it's called. And that, again, is what allows the material to be strong enough or prepped for proper adhesion for paint. But it looks like it's like almost like a metallic paint. The C1s also, these again are just a couple of spares that I have that aren't in great shape. Again, you can see all the scratches there, but it allowed me to get everything mocked up. These are hollow. And again, one thing here, I had to be very careful to make sure that I could open these, and you can without any problem. Very solid latch on those things. The P1 and X1 brains, those are going to be gold plated once again, and obviously, you know, no guts in the Milberts or anything like that. But all in all, being able to sit back and take a look at what this thing is going to look like is making my day, I got to tell you. So, all right, let me give you some more details here, and then I'll go ahead and close out this short video. Here's the view from a little bit further back. Again, I think that looks really cool. All right, so closing out this video, I just wanted to provide some information, kind of where I'm at with the build so far. I am currently at like within an hour of 1,000 hours on the build. I know it doesn't look like much, but if you've been watching this series and you see the level of detail, the amount of time all of this has taken, you know why I'm at 1,000 hours. I'm at 400 hours so far in the trunk. Also, my father's been sending me updates on the zebra wood. He's 86 years old, be 87 in January, so he doesn't works a little slower than I do, if you can believe that. But he is probably a couple of weeks away from being able to ship that to me. When I get it, I will put that in and I will mount everything even before I finish the wood. I'll be doing the staining and I'm not sure what exactly yet, epoxy clear coat. I'm still gonna do a bunch of testing on that, but I'll show that. It is coming out amazing, guys. It looks incredible. I can't even imagine this with, you know, everything done with that zebra wood. It's gonna look really cool. I'm also, just so everyone knows that's been following, my goal is to do like a short overview video, maybe 10 minutes or less, for anybody who's kind of new to following the build. And I'll post that on like some Facebook pages, probably on Milbert's web page. And it'll just be a 10-minute video of where I'm at with the car, kind of just a short recap. So keep on the lookout for that. Probably, hopefully get that done in the next week or so. I'm also going to be taking a short break from working on the car. I wanted to get to this point before I did that. I've got some other cars and other things to do. My garage is a mess. You guys probably saw my bench is totally disgusting. My workbench, I noticed this the other day when I was shooting some video. It's not dirty, it's just worn. I do a lot. Beyond the BMW, I've got other cars I work on. We have horses, so I'm constantly using this to fix whatever gets broken around here. And again, I've got this Mercedes E55 AMG, had a windshield put in 2 months ago. I haven't driven the car since. And I've got another one outside that needs some work as well. So I'll take a short break, hopefully maybe a couple of weeks tops, and then I'll be back on to the BMW. From there, I've got to figure out what I'm going to do next. I've got, you know, basically the way I see it, I'm calling this the Milbert rack, this bottom part, that is roughed out, meaning I've got everything figured out with all the mounting and all of that. Still a bunch to do. I've got to get, you know, I'm going to finish off the bracket, the shroud for the 845 tube. I've got a lot to do with the Milberts. You know, I've got some brazing to do with like those brackets I made. I've got to get those gold plated. I'm going to recap everything in the Zapcos, the two Zapcos, recap all the Sonys, new DC to DC converters, if I haven't swapped them out yet, in all of the Sony components. So there's still, you know, a lot to do, even with, and then this part I'm calling the hanging rack. So hanging rack and the Milbert floor, still a bunch of work to finish that off and get it completed. But I think I'll hold off on that stuff. That'll be the last detail stuff. I think the next thing I'm going to start working on is what I'm calling all trim panels. So on these sides of the trunk, I'm going to build like fiberglass walls, if you will, that will curve and they'll be symmetrical. And then I'll do, you know, I've got to do the spare tire area, the floor. So I might start mocking that stuff up next. And that gives me kind of the general overall shape and you know, form of the trunk itself. Then I can go through every piece and then do the details. So if I do these next, they'll just be fiberglass ready to upholster. There's some cool things that I'm working on for these two side panels. Earl had a really, really cool idea. It's subtle, but it's gonna be like the cherry on top, and I'll talk more about that. That'll be a surprise. You'll see that when that comes. So that's gonna be it for this video. I know it's a short one. I'll go ahead and close this out.
Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate any support and encouragement. It can be lonely and long nights here in the garage, but it's starting to become really worth it. I'm seeing the fruits of the labor, and I'm really excited. So if you have not yet, I would appreciate it if you subscribe, like the video, and tell your friends. Thank you very much. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.